We talked last time quite a bit about your folks, Opal. Jay, could you tell me a bit about your family?
Well, my dad was from Minneapolis. His parents came over from Denmark, had a dairy in Minneapolis area. He he went to St. Olaf College, so did Mom. He played football there. After that, he went in the service, and he had a degree and then went in the service, and she got her degree and went teaching. I think she started in Kalispell.
Tell them how your parents met.
Oh,
That is a fabulous story.
to make money, Dad, on the weekends drove some wealthy old lady around in her very fancy automobile. And one day it had an organ in it. And she heard Mom playing the piano somewhere, or organ, whatever. So she asked her to play while they drove around the countryside.
Oh, wow. That's quite a vehicle for the time.
And that's how his parents met. I love that story.
Yeah.
So how'd they end up here at little old Hinsdale?
Well, they dated in college, and when he went to the service, she was ready to come up here then. And when they decided to get married, they got married in California. And Grandpa made them some sort of an offer, I don't know details. And that's how they got up here. He did actually work for John Deere for a short period of time after the war, but not very long. And he always liked it here.
Loved it here.
Mm-hmm. Do you have memories of your grandparents?
Some, yeah. We would go over there a couple times a year when I was a young kid. When I was real little, I know that was my first TV experience, watching Captain Kangaroo about, I'd say 1954, somewhere in there.
And then the Westrums, you knew.
Yeah, the Westrums lived next door, so in fact we lived with them till this house was built. In that little house over there. When there wasn't running water for the first couple of years. I don't know exactly when that came. It came when they built this house, but not much before. There was a pump in the kitchen, hand pump, that you had a cistern in the basement.
So you had inside water, but it wasn't on a tap.
It wasn't running water.
It was just
No, Guy Seeley slipped a few bales of ice through a hole in the foundation into the cistern whenever you wanted something. That's where your water came from.
Oh, they transported it by ice and
Yeah.
Do you
I'd
have
never
those
heard of that before.
Do you have those pictures?
From the
Ice stuff?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it all came out of the river. We cut it out there.
it's amazing you get clean water out of the river.
I don't know how clean it was.
It was a lot cleaner when it was frozen than when it was liquid.
Well, it was probably a lot cleaner in those days than it is now, too.
True.
But, yeah, there was a big warehouse where Gloria's shop is over there. He kept ice in there year-round.
So how was it? You said both your parents had college degrees.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that was probably the vast minority for the area to have parents with
Well, I'm
college
sure it was for
education.
this area. I don't know about Minneapolis, but yeah. They had a pretty good head start on life after the service was over with the deal they made with Fred, my grandfather. This was pretty much it. And in those days, a farm our side, it was 500 or 600 acres, I don't remember exactly, mostly irrigated. They could make that work in those days, and by the time things started demanding bigger farms, they didn't owe anybody anything, so they could keep going on that for the rest of their working life anyway.
Yeah.
And that was about the time the towns started getting smaller, and either they couldn't compete or couldn't have everything that bigger towns and bigger stores had. So now we have a lot of very small towns in the area and very big farms.
Yeah.
When the population got mobile.
Yeah, very mobile. Well, growing up there wasn't any TV, there wasn't any computers, there wasn't any cell phones, so it was pretty much a local world. I mean, not that way now.
Yeah.
Go shopping in Billings.
And you can fly down there.
Yeah.
So if you guys needed to go to Glasgow to go to a bigger town and buy stuff, how was that trip? How did you get over there?
Oh, you probably want to hear about the Skidoo.
I love trains. I always want to hear about the Skidoo.
I was so glad you put that picture in those pictures you
That
did.
very well could be the only local picture of that train.
It's hard to find information on this.
Yeah. There, some lady from Dodson had an article about it on the internet. Took a while to find it, but it's on there. Yeah, it was just about a 3-car train. I think one was mail, one was stuff that people sold, like dairy products and eggs and stuff. Went in one car, one passenger train, and a coal car for fuel. That was it.
And I'll bet knowing Graham, she was dressed to the hilts with her little hat on.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
had to go shopping. Dress for shopping.
I don't remember if it was just once a day, one each way, or what. But
So what was that like? Because all that infrastructure is gone. We don't even have the depot anymore. What was that like? Most people anymore probably have never been on a train.
yeah, probably not. Well, I don't remember much of the details about getting on and off and going there. I was pretty small then. I maybe 4 or 5, maybe. But it was, I don't know, I don't have anything but good memories of it. I mean, it wasn't like it was a lot of problems or anything. But
Do you remember when it transitioned from everyone hopped on the train to get out of town to when everyone kind of had their own vehicle and the train kind of became...
Well, I don't know. I can't imagine it ran much past 1950, but I really don't know. I was a pretty little kid when that was.
It was already kind of on its last legs.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. Cars have gotten better, and the roads probably got better. And,
It was pretty
maybe
tough
women
on...
started driving. I don't know. I don't think too many of them drove in those days. But
Pretty rough on some of those smaller communities like Vandalia when all the traffic started going the other way.
well, yeah, and I don't know how long before all of those places shut down, but they must have still been there then. I'm sure they stopped for everybody. But it wasn't a high-speed train anyway, so.
Yeah. So what are some of your earliest memories?
Oh. I remember the streets being dug up when they put the water lines and stuff in. That was about the time this house was being built. And they finished it in '51, so it was right before that somewhere. Great big pile of dirt all the way down the street.
Probably a pretty big event for the town.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it was. Finally got running water. Somehow they already had sewer. I'm not sure how that worked.
Huh.
I don't remember any, that we had a septic tank. It was just,
It's definitely interesting having one before the other, isn't it?
yeah. I'm not even sure that I'm right about that, but I don't remember there being any septic tanks. Of course, 4 or 5 years old, you don't have much interest in that anyway, but,
You were
if there
busy,
was,
busy riding your bike around town.
yeah, going out and playing in the irrigation ditch, and frogs and snails and all that stuff, snakes. That was fun. It was fun having a farm so close, you could just run out there and back and not have to spend all day out there or all day here or wherever.
Yeah, you got the best of both worlds, huh?
Yeah. I think so.
City kid with a farm.
Yeah. Yeah, some city.
Not many people can say that.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the farm. Obviously they've changed a lot.
Again, when I was really young, they grew sugar beets here, and that went on till Chinook closed. So, they had some, people from Mexico working for them, seasonal people, when it was time to do the beets originally. I think mechanical pickers came along about the time they quit. I mean, they might have used them out here for a year or two, like, maybe, I don't know.
Make a big investment and then have to switch crops altogether, huh?
Yeah, they had, I don't know if you remember those big beet knives, looked like a machete with a hook on the end of it. Those guys used a blade to chop the tops off and the hook to pull them out of the ground.
So how was it when those workers came to town? Obviously Hinsdale was kind of still its own little bubble in the world.
Yeah, we had a building out at the farm where they stayed, and I don't think they came to town much. They might have come in for groceries or something, but I don't remember them being in town. So that would be my guess. I don't know that. But
They were here to work and not much else, huh?
yeah.
Well, I've heard of a few stories of the pigs over at the farm.
That came along after I left, and
Oh,
other
really?
than some vacations I spent messing around out there and feeding them and looking at them and stuff. I didn't really get involved in that. When I was growing up, Dad didn't want any animals. He went south to Arizona. His parents had a place in a mobile home park, trailer park in those days. Down there they went for the winters, so we usually went down there for a couple of weeks every winter when I would say probably 6 or 8 years in a row that I went down there.
So does that make your folks the original snowbirds?
Well, they didn't stay for the winter. They just stayed for.
Yeah, but not many people traveled away for 2 weeks at a time.
No, Dad had first time I remember going down, he had like a '53 Buick convertible. We went in that. I remember going in that once. And then he had a '56 Cadillac, and we went in that more than once, that I remember.
That must have been a pretty long trip down.
Oh yeah, yep. You had Mom pack a picnic basket, and you didn't stop except for gas. So. And most of the speed limit then were about 55 miles an hour, I think, so.
It took forever to get anywhere.
Yeah.
Great Falls was an overnight trip.
Yeah,
No 80-mile-an-hour interstates.
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how much time you can make on those interstates, I'll tell you. I don't know how much time you spend on them, but.
Oh, I spend plenty of time driving.
You didn't talk about your love of farming.
No, I wasn't the best farmer in the world. I had allergies, hay fevers and stuff, so bad that anything remotely close to a combine when it was running would just, I couldn't stop it. It just kept running out. Even haying, I did a lot of the hay work, but I jump in the irrigation ditch about every other hour or so just to get wet and maybe flush out my nose and that kind of stuff. It was just miserable.
It's amazing how many farmers I hear have hay allergies, and some of them pretty severe.
Yeah.
But they just do it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't know what classifies as severe, and I don't know that it's as bad now as it was then. I still have it, but, yeah, I mean, it was just ridiculous. And, in those days, we didn't have any animals, but he raised alfalfa, so we mowed it, raked it, baled it, put it on a truck, put it in the yard. Somebody bought it, put it back on the truck, and go someplace and put it in their yard.
All by hand, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of guys still like to do that.
What was your dad's comment about you being a farmer?
Oh, he just told me I wasn't much of a farmer.
Better find something else to do.
And we had, most of that ground out there, at least on this side of the tracks, is all gumbo. So he had a big international cat. I think it was a 14, but I don't remember for sure. I got to go up the field, down the field, you know, to pull a lever about every 15 minutes or whatever it was. Turn it over in the spring, but the tractors then, most of them didn't want to go through that.
The ones now can hardly do it. That gumbo's pretty tough.
Yeah, so that's what you did, and then he went over with a disc and stuff. But, all of the stuff on this side of the highway was level, so we got to do siphons. Usually I got the night shift when I was old enough.
The mosquito shift.
Yeah. But that was okay. Most of us kids didn't mind that. They all got to run the same boat, so most of the checks we had ran about 5 or 6 hours, so you had nothing to do in between but come to town and mess around with whoever else was doing the same thing.
Yeah, I've heard there was a pretty good crew of kids running around at the time.
There was, a lot more than there are now. In fact, running around we did a lot of that. And you don't see the kids too much anymore. They got lots of entertainment and other things to do that we didn't have. I mean, you made your own fun.
So who were the main people in your crew running around?
Oh, Kenny McCauley, Gary Mercer, John Blockus when he finally got back here for the final time.
Well, he was here all your young years.
Huh?
He was here all your youth years.
Yeah, he was all growing up through the grades till about, I don't know what, 6th grade or 7th grade or somewhere in there.
And Shirley.
Oh yeah, Shirley was one of the boys.
Mm.
Yeah, she was.
And the Eatons.
Yeah, they lived out of town, but they were part of the group too.
So what were the favorite activities when you were all together?
Well, we had a circus in the front yard one.
Really?
Yeah. That tree wasn't that big, but it was big enough we could play in it without any trouble. Had pretty good sized limbs. We had a trapeze thing out there. Shirley was a trapeze artist.
Oh, I'm sure.
Stubbs Rudder let us use a horse. We had 6 of us kids on that horse one time. We're little kids. I forget what all the circus had, but that was. And the year it snowed so much, 52, I think, we built a bunch of furniture out on the boulevard there in the snow and had a house out there. But that's what you did. Rode bikes a lot when it was, you know, whether you could do that. I don't know.
Were there any big games? I know, heard of Annie I Over and Kick the Can and all that, or was it more running
Marbles, played marbles.
We have quite a marble collection.
Yeah.
Now, was it for keeps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what you played for keeps.
So if you have the big collection, that means you must have been the one running the table.
Well,
Maybe the only ones who were silly enough to save them all.
yeah, that could be more likely what it is. You know, knuckles down or thrown in a pot against the wall or whatever. That was it. There was that knife game, that Mumbly Peg or whatever it was. We didn't play that very much.
Now, did the parents approve of the one with the knife?
I don't know if we asked them. But everybody had one. I don't think they do that
Well,
anymore
they
either.
can't do that anymore.
Well, can't take it to school anymore, probably.
Probably not in the playground, no.
No.
You can't even have lawn darts anymore.
Yeah,
At least not real ones.
yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned Stubbs Rudder. I've heard his name come up several times for people talking about their childhood. He
Who?
must Rudder?
Stubbs.
Oh,
Rudder.
Stubbs, yeah.
He must have been a pretty integral and helpful for a lot of the kids, it seems.
I think it was, yeah. Yeah,
Now, would he have still been postmaster at that point?
yeah. And, him and all those girls and his wife, yeah. They were always around.
I believe I've had some people tell me that he taught a lot of kids how to swim in the river back in the day.
He could have, I don't know. We pretty much learned in the irrigation ditch.
A little bit
Sink or
easier to
swim?
live.
In the main canal, you know, when you're little, you can swim up and down that thing. And one time John Blockus and I tried to build a boat to float down that thing in, but it didn't work very well.
Only would have made it to the first culvert anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't very, well, we could hardly get in it. We didn't build it, you couldn't build it very big, and even though we were little, we could hardly get in it.
Well, and he did spend some time working at the hardware store.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of a mixed bag of things in there. There was, I mean, you were expected to be able to do just about everything from cut pipe and glass to find 1928 tractor parts someplace in a bin in the back somewhere. That was the hard part. Some of those guys that come in off the field broke down and they did something pretty quick, and I had no clue what they were talking about. Dad was usually at the farm, and if Fred wasn't there, they were out of luck.
So they would leave you completely by yourself to run the store?
Well, for short periods of time, I mean, even a day sometimes if something was going on, but usually Fred was pretty much there. That's what he did.
Yeah.
But he liked to sit in the office, smoke his pipe, and work on his accounts, you know, keeping the paperwork up to date, and ordering and all that stuff.
Did he play that organ that was in there?
I don't remember that he did.
Oh,
No.
I wonder why it was in the store.
I don't know, maybe Mom. Maybe he had it for Mom. I
Oh,
don't
he
know.
had it for your mom. But Fred also had a special little bottle that the farmers liked.
Oh, yeah, back in one of those little bins back there, they'd have to have a snort once in a while. Not all of them, but
So was the hardware store pretty pivotal to a lot of the farms around? That was probably the
well, it was
main
then, and
supply.
it was actually an International Harvester dealership.
Oh, really?
We had implements here, not the big stuff, but, you know, rakes and mowers and small tractors, smaller tractors and that kind of stuff. Most of which ended up on Main Street on Halloween, and had to drag it back afterwards.
Now those pictures you saw the other day where that gas pump was out in front
Yeah,
of
there
the
was
store.
In front of there used to be a gas pump.
This is some of the pictures you
Mhm.
posted.
I noticed that pump was pretty much in front of the front door where the store is. I don't remember it being there, and I don't know wherever that picture came from either, because it said Ballard or something, the guy's
It was
name.
Fred's collection.
Huh?
That was one of Fred's
Yeah.
pictures.
It was.
Most of
Yeah.
those were his collection.
But I don't know when it was.
Probably
Good.
says it on the back of the picture.
I don't know. Because the one with Fred standing in front of the store and the gas pump was over to the side at that point, I think that says 1917, if I remember right.
Mhm.
I don't remember the one with the guy's name Ballard on there. And I didn't think that was the name of the man that he bought it from either, but So I'm curious how old that picture was, I don't know.
I'll have to look at my records.
Because the one where he's standing in front of the store, his name's up there.
And Federal Western, yeah.
No, it's just a blessing that any of those pictures are around at all. Any
Yeah.
pictures before the 40s in Hinsdale are pretty rare.
I thought he told me that the man he bought it from, that his name was Toughness.
And that's what I've seen and read as well.
Yeah, I don't know where Ballad fit in, but must have been before
Well, it may
Toughness.
have been a picture that Fred took, because there's lots of pictures there that he took before he owned the store.
Well, maybe so, but it wasn't the name that he told me, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's plenty of mysteries that we'll never
Yeah.
really know the answer to.
Yeah, sadly, yeah.
But you guys have definitely helped me answer a few that I wasn't quite sure about.
In those days, like when they had Legion Hall dances or the circus or whatever came to town, you couldn't find a place to park on Main Street. You don't have that trouble much anymore.
No.
Sad, but,
How common were circuses in town?
pardon?
How common was the circus?
I only remember it once. I don't think it came much after probably the early 50s again.
And would they set those up over by the Legion? Is that kind of the area that they had set aside for that?
I don't remember. But I think that's probably why we had a circus of our own out here in the tree, because they'd been to town, but,
Little inspiration.
yeah, somewhere along the line.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a lot of changes in all those years.
Yeah, Main Street especially has changed a little bit.
They paved it for one thing, got rid of the sign, the flagpole in the middle of the road.
Yeah, that sounds like something a lot of people were kind of up in arms about.
I imagine they were, yeah.
Well, it happened around that flagpole.
Yeah,
Well, at least we still have the pole. 'Cause from my understanding, it's the one at the American Legion now. It's just shorter.
oh, could be, yeah. I don't know.
From what I read, they just cut it off at the base and put it back in, so it's not as tall as it used to be. But I believe it's the same pole.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, I never thought about that. That makes sense.
Yeah, but I guess it was a sacrifice we had to make to get a bridge across the river. Because they had to get from my understanding, they needed the bridge to the north,
Yeah,
but the only way they could pay for it was to make that road a state highway. And the state said you cannot have a flagpole in the middle of a state highway.
I see.
Oh, that's
Well,
interesting.
Because the county was never gonna have the money to put in that second bridge.
well, I think it was worth that to put in that paved road out there and straighten that bridge out. It used to be two nasty corners.
They had corners in the bridge?
No, but to get to it. you know.
Oh, to get to the bridge.
I
Gotcha,
can
yeah.
remember hauling weight for somebody up north, I can't remember who it was, in that old Ford truck. And you had to slow down to almost nothing to get around that corner. If you had a full load on there, you didn't wanna go around there too fast.
Hmm.
And,
Pretty much a
it
switch.
didn't used to run the way it does now, it used to run kinda this way.
Really?
Wasn't that bad, but somehow.
Yeah, a little more convenient now.
Yeah, much more. A much nicer road. And even the gravel roads are much nicer now. I don't know if Keystone made them all that nice, or they've been that nice for years, or what.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
So we've lost a lot of businesses on Main Street, the hardware being one of them. What else was open at that time?
Well, they used to have a barber shop on Main Street.
Ida's.
Ida ran it when I was little, and then Ellsworth after that, Roy Ellsworth. Liquor store was up there on the other side of Claypool's store.
Trussell?
Bill
Bill
Trussell
Trussell.
ran it. I don't know if it was his store or not.
Was it between Claypool's and Trussell's and then the Palace Inn, or was there another building there?
No, I think the Palace Inn was next. And then Phillips 66 on the end. There was another grocery store across the street from Claypool's, or some kind of a store, it might have been 2 or 3, might have even been a car dealership at one time, but I think that was before I can remember, but.
So how long did that service station up on the highway, when did that go? Because there's no remnants of there ever being a building up there, but that must have been a pretty big part of the community.
Well, at the time it was, yeah, there were 3 gas stations, that,
We had 3 gas stations?
yeah,
Wow.
maybe 4, I don't know if they were all at the same time. Eldon had a Texaco. Farmers Union was next to
Mhm.
Eldon, and then the Phillips 66. And when they put the motel in, Reynolds ran the standard station there. I don't remember if all the other ones, well, the Farmers Union was for sure, but I don't remember when the 66, not sure when that closed.
I think my calendar from Phillips 66 is 1966, so it must have still been open then.
It was still open, well, it was still there for sure. I don't know, I'm not sure about open. But it
That was
still there.
McIlvain's?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that would have been, yeah. But sometime after I left for college,
Well, and 3 bars.
lots of things disappeared.
You had 3 bars at one time,
Yeah, 3 bars.
2 or 3 grocery stores.
Somebody told me, I don't remember it, but at one time there were 4 lumber yards in town. But the only one I know of was the Farmers Union, but,
I think John Morgan told you that.
yeah, he could have.
Yeah, I have a few maps and some notes on the different lumber yards, but yeah, by the time we got through the homesteading period, there wasn't nearly the need for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the rush was over.
You weren't building thousands of homes in the area anymore. It was,
No,
everything was kind of established.
yeah,
So you mentioned the hotel. Was it still used as a hotel at that time, or because it eventually
2
became?
hotels.
Oh, we had 2 at that
well, the
point.
Chester Hotel
Mm-hmm.
In the north.
over here by the
Oh, and the
Cooley.
and the northern was still operating as a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Chester Hotel was full of some sort of tenants, renters. I don't know that they actually
They
did,
lived
Little more
at that
than
point,
yeah.
did any for traveling people or whatever, but.
Gotcha. I know there's plenty of stories of people using it for boarding for the school. So
Yeah,
Well, in the northern too, a lot of people lived there, like my Uncle Gusty and his wife lived there for 3 years at the northern.
oh wow.
yeah.
So hotels obviously probably operated a little different then than they do now.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
think so, yeah. Yeah. And I don't know what the rules were all along with that, but one end of that coulee was pretty full of garbage from the Chester Hotel. It seemed like it all went over the bank there.
They didn't feel like hauling it to the dump, huh?
Well, in those days, the dump was out south,
Mhm.
but I don't know when all that started or stopped.
The county wasn't taking care of it at that point, evidently.
I don't think so.
If you had a ditch out back, it might as well just be your
Yeah,
dump pile.
yeah.
So where was the dump out south? I know some people have talked about it, but
Well,
it's been covered up.
The off-ramp for it, if you wanna call it that, was kinda out there by the cemetery, on the
Oh, okay.
other side of the road. And
So it
that's
was
probably-
right off the road.
No,
then,
it wasn't,
or-
no,
oh,
it
okay.
wasn't right off the road. You had about, I think, a half-mile drive to
Oh,
get
okay.
Yeah.
over and around.
It was
there.
off to the west.
You can kind, if you know where to look, it's still, it doesn't look like a dump, but you can tell it's been worked over there, it's all covered up, but.
Yeah, I know. Blockus had told me, I believe it was Blockus had told me he was awful mad at them when they did that one because he thought it was a pretty good dump because it burned every few years and kind of took care of itself. But then he said when the county said that they couldn't use it anymore and filled it in, that they tore down evidently a bit of a little geological spire
Oh,
or something to tip it in. He thought that was always a pretty cool piece of dirt or rock or whatever, and was kind of mad at him for doing it.
I don't recall that, but anyway, yeah. Could be. That was I think that was another thing that happened while we were gone, so
Mhm.
yeah. We left for 40 years, missed a couple generations of people, and their people.
Yes. I'm sure there's still plenty of names that are the same
I-
though.
And you know, if you're gone for 6 months or 7 months at a time, come back, start all over.
Just gotta remember the last names. So,
Yeah,
every so many years they come back around in the school.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what were the school years like?
Well, I don't know, I like going to school, I never had trouble with that, enjoyed that, liked playing basketball, yeah, it was fun. During noon recess, we'd play softball, I had to run home, get something to eat, and get back up there so I could get a position as one of the batters before all the kids got out of school.
So what was the layout of the old school?
Well, it was big front doors, 2-story brick, more than that, probably 3-story brick building, I guess some of it underground. Had a small gymnasium when you first came in the door. Principals, superintendent's offices were pretty much right there when you walked in. Most of the classrooms were upstairs. There was a couple downstairs for high school.
First, second,
Grade,
third,
grade
and fourth
school
were
was
downstairs.
Yeah. First 4 were downstairs, and then everything else was upstairs.
So you started on the bottom and then kind of graduated
worked
up
your way
to
up.
the top.
Yeah.
Special stairs.
They did have graduation ceremonies down in that small gymnasium. They had a big stage on one end. And then they had a passing the torch ceremony where you'd walk up one side and the next class would walk down the other side. Stairs went up kind of like this. So, some things that aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And oddly, this school is older than the one they tore down. Didn't seem like that, but
Yeah. Well, I heard that there might have been a couple long-term structural issues with.
oh, I
the
think
old
it
one.
was probably time to tear the other one down. I don't mean that at all.
Yeah.
It just surprises me that this one's now older than that one was. when
Well,
they tore it
I'm
down.
very proud of this one because for how much age it is, it's much more modern than what a lot of the other small schools in Montana are working with.
Yeah,
A lot of them have newer schools that are not of this quality or as well
yeah,
designed.
yeah, no, that's a nice place there. I wish I could have played basketball in there. Although I will say, we had a real good floor. We didn't have glass backboards and there wasn't much room on the ends. You could hardly get your feet off.
And not much room in the bleachers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that too, but,
Yeah. So what other teams did you play against for basketball?
well, it was, in those days, it was Turner, Hoagland, Dodson, Saco, us. I don't remember Nashville, I think Nashville was a B school in those days.
No.
And Opine, somehow they weren't in our district either, I don't think. Or Luster, or,
They must have gone the other way or something.
yeah, we were kind of this end of the district.
Yeah. But now we're the other end of this district.
Yeah.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't, I kind of shake my head thinking about what parents and kids have to do now with 3 schools combined and sharing practice facilities and games, and I mean, somebody must be on the road all the time.
It's several hours a week.
Oh, yeah, if you practice 5 days and games a couple days or whatever, you would.
Yeah.
So what teams did you play in football?
Saco, Dodson, Arnie Gardner,
Army Guard,
Dakota,
North Dakota.
Culbertson,
You had one in North Dakota?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's a little bit of a drive.
that was quite a fun trip.
Yeah, they're. Well, that was, I don't know, it was hard, I guess, for all the schools to keep up teams. One year it'd be one year it was 6-man football, one year it was 8-man football. It was just, you couldn't tell the schools didn't have enough kids even then for some of those things. They tried playing baseball too, and you just didn't.
It's even a larger team you have to
Yeah,
field.
right, that's even more kids, and that didn't work either, I guess. So basketball and track, we had track meets every year for spring,
Back
What
then,
did you do in track?
mostly ran.
Huh, I don't think we talked about that in
We had-
58 years.
We had a few,
always something new.
we had a few pretty good runners. Mostly the short distance stuff, some, but,
Would you have ever imagined being on a team with people from Seiko back in the day?
no, and I know there's probably still people that can't imagine that, but I don't think it's as big a problem for kids as it was for the grown-ups.
Yeah, I know there was at least one generation there where the rivalry was strong enough it would probably never would have happened, but now they're all friends and it works pretty well.
It wasn't like there weren't any fights or anything, there were, but,
I've heard sports were a little bit more rough and tumble back then.
I don't, maybe, I don't know about that. But.
Okay, maybe it was just Kelton and Albee.
Or Lauren Ellis.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So did they have any sports options for you at that time, Opal, or was it in the?
You know, I made a mistake when we talked before. We had GAA, Girls Athletic Association, because Title IX, correct? Had
That's when that Title IX
had
showed
not
up.
come into effect. So everything we did was in our own gymnasium. We weren't allowed to compete with other schools. And even if we played basketball, it was a two-step thing, so I don't think I ever shot a basketball in my life, because I was what, a forward?
Yeah.
I've been a forward, so I never got to shoot.
She couldn't cross half court.
Cheryl Swanson and Shirley did all the shooting.
They had everything set up to make it to the point where there was just no chance of any contact. Huh?
Right, and volleyball was very mild. I mean, it wasn't even very aggressive. We did play it, at least in the wintertime. We played baseball, but there again, it was just the kids from your own school.
You could play for
You were
fun,
s-
but there was no organized
Yeah, we were
sports for
still
girls.
pretty competitive, though, and we did a lot of,
Well, a lot of times they had class tournaments.
yeah. And in the gymnasium, we had a lot of rope climbing, and I was pretty muscular, so Cheryl and I could do that really good. Do you remember that?
They had a set of rings down there that they could lower so you could jump up and grab them and swing. Didn't get an array of basketball, but, you know. And on bad weather days, whatever kids had to go home went home, and the rest of us went down to the gym and played whatever.
And we had to go home.
Mhm. So was playground equipment a thing back then, or was it pretty much up to your own
No, they
devices
had
on the
several
lawn?
swings and the monkey bars and the slide, stuff for, younger kids
Mhm.
mostly, but teeter-totters.
Now, is some of that equipment what's now down in the river park, or was that kind of its own set down there? Because there's a
I
there's a
don't
set
know
of
what's down there.
there's a set of swings and a slide and a little merry-go-round hidden back in there.
Huh, I haven't
Uh,
noticed it.
They've been there a long time, so I wasn't sure if that was something that maybe they moved
Well,
that in the
might be my
90s.
guess that's where it came from then, I don't know.
Maybe that was stuff they moved down in the 90s when they put the new equipment in. I'm not sure. I always thought that merry-go-round in the park was way funner because it was at an angle,
Oh,
so you could really whip it around on the bottom side.
yeah, you probably pump it. Yeah. No, I don't, that must be after we left. School was still going, I don't remember exactly when they built that school, but late
Yeah, six-
70s?
Late 60s, I believe, wasn't it?
Oh, was it late
It was like
60s?
67, 68, I think. I'd have to go back and
Mhm.
look. I was just looking all this up the other day, and I can't. They bought quite a bit of the buildings, I think, and '66 or '67, and then built the new school the next year. I'd have to double check.
Yeah,
Just when the Majestic Theater, the old Legion would have moved, and some of that other little stuff that was around there would have been
yeah.
tore down, because I think there was an old garage and stuff kind of on that one corner.
One of the things I think that was really different then versus now is how much we used the park and the river. All the boating, all the picnics,
Yeah.
weekends, everybody was down there. And now nobody's down there.
Yeah, because I believe the 4th of July picnic for years and
Wasn't
years
there.
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
down there, and I didn't realize this till I was in high school, and we put in the new outhouse down there. We dug into the old fire pit because all of a sudden there's all these rocks and this ash,
Mhm.
like 5 feet down, and we're like, "What is this?"
yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
come across an archaeology site or something, and
Well,
all
they-
this was where we smoked the brisket
Yeah,
or the
Oh,
pork.
and it
Yeah.
was so good.
Yeah, that's what they, you know, somebody knew what they were doing, to just dig a pit or a trench or whichever it was, and throw stuff in there and cook it in that, cover it up, and let it cook for however long, I don't know. But,
Now that I think about it, we dug into a couple of things while I was in high school, because we dug into that, and then when we put the greenhouse in behind the school, we dug into the old foundation of the school,
Right.
right at the corner, and we realized we had to move the greenhouse because it was no longer going to work there,
yeah,
because we were never going to get through 3 feet of concrete.
yeah,
Kind of cool for me. It kind of places where some things are, because
yeah,
we know that the old school is roughly on the same school grounds, but we know that it was set back farther, right?
yeah,
Because what the library and the shop are part of the old school,
Right.
but they were not the original school building. They were
Right.
like an annex.
it was added on, yeah.
So would those have been like off the back side, or would those have been like right off the west wall of the
west.
school?
Mostly right, well, yeah, it had to be off the west wall of the school. Yeah.
When did they tear down the canning facility?
I don't know.
Because that was, you remember that, I don't.
Yeah, there used to be a cannery on this end of the school ground, right by the Park Hill there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember when I was very little, I don't know when they stopped using it, but every fall the women would take whatever they had, they wanted to can up there, I mean.
So it wasn't so much a business in and of itself, but a community
Not-
building.
Not that I remember.
It was a community building dedicated to
Well,
canning all the vegetables.
yeah, I don't know if there was somebody that ran it before that as some kind of business or not, I don't know. And it was only going on for, a couple of weeks in the fall, something like that, maybe more than that.
It was probably a pretty big thing back then, because
Well,
a lot of the groceries
I
you
can
put
remember
up-
all the women being up there doing whatever, but,
Was it canning in cans or canning in jars? You don't
I
remember?
don't remember.
I would assume jars. I haven't
Yeah,
heard of anyone making
I'd
their own
have to guess,
cans.
I'd have to guess that too.
Yeah.
You needed different equipment if you're making cans.
But all the women used to take their kids up there, so if there was anybody with the measles,
Measles.
and they all got it, and they got over it at the same
Chicken
time.
pox, whatever.
The Hinsdale vaccination program.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite food that you guys had out of the cans, out of the jars that your home pickles and?
Oh yeah, pickles would probably definitely be the favorite, but I mean, they are all of the vegetables.
Well, were they bread and butter pickles or dill pickles?
Well, I don't like bread and butter pickles, but there were some, yeah, but I like dill pickles. But they did a lot of stuff. I don't remember too much meat. I'm not sure, I know people did
Yeah, my mom
do
did a
meat,
lot of
but
meat.
I probably didn't pay that much attention anyway.
And Darren's doing meats.
Oh. So was beef as common then, or was it a lot more backyard chickens and salted pork?
No, I think beef was just as popular
Yeah.
then.
The freezers kind of allowed everyone to
Yeah,
to keep
Yeah,
their own meat
yeah,
a little
they-
easier.
Refrigerators had been invented.
And got improved and got bigger.
We had a international freezer, that's what we sold at the store, in our basement, one of those great big old chest freezers, the walls were this thick, and they had big heavy springs on the door, cause it weighed about I don't know, more than you'd lift if it didn't have those springs on it, for sure. Especially Mom, but, I watched them put it down there, they had to take the top off of it to get it down the stair, well, to lighten it up. And then there was 4 guys, one was Dad, and I forget who the other 3 were. And they had to take the railings off the stairs downstairs and the doors in and out off.
It was a tight fit of it.
And they could barely, and they had some kind of hooks they were kind of shaped like this with a hook, with a lip on the bottom. And each of them had one of them, and the 4 guys took that thing down the stairs. So when we moved back here, it hadn't worked in years. I had to get it out of there. So I took the plates off it, I wanted to keep them out there and down in my shop somewhere, but 1951 was when it was made. And then probably pretty close to when it went in. I wasn't gonna go through all that trouble, I cut it up with a Sawzall. Took it out in pieces.
It doesn't affect it as much when it's already not working, huh?
But we
Yeah,
kept all the nice shelves because they're good organizers.
yeah, a lot of wire shelves that went in there.
Not
But,
a,
you know, the stuff that ended up in the bottom, I don't know if anybody ever took it out of there. It was,
we would have had to defrost it, I'm assuming, because it
Well-
just became part of the bottom.
but yeah, probably.
Mhm.
Make sure you don't put your good steaks on the bottom, huh? So what were some of your favorite meals that you would have growing up? And
Goop,
goop?
yeah.
But your mom didn't call it goop.
Oh, see, I don't know what she called it. Eventually, that's what she called it. It's just mashed potatoes and a hamburger and gravy stuff on it, really good. And that was one of the favorites. All of us always like side pork. Sometimes now you can't find it anymore, but
So why was side pork, it's a different cut than bacon?
nope, it's just uncured.
Just uncured.
Yeah,
Once in a while we would have that growing up, but yeah, it's not a common thing anymore.
no,
Well, and if you were doing your own butchering, which my dad did, we did X amount of beef a year because he had his herd, but he always did a lamb and he always did a pig and we did turkeys and chickens. So you ended up with side pork because he didn't have the means to make hams and bacons. So that's kind of what we grew up with, was the side pork.
So
And
did-
then eventually that packing plant went into Glasgow and then he hauled down to there.
mhm.
so between your mother and your grandmothers, who was the best cook?
That's a good one, I don't know.
You can't get in trouble anymore, you can have the answer.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Oh, yeah. Can't get in trouble, right? I don't know, that'd be a hard one.
They were similar.
Uh-huh,
They were similar in the ways they cooked.
yeah.
And that's an easy thing for me to answer, because the Gosh tradition, and you know a lot of Gosh people started with our grandmother, who was the cook at many restaurants here in town. So Mom did a lot of her stuff, so did Agnes.
Mhm.
Danette and I and Nancy still do a lot of her recipes.
I guess that's something I never really asked the last time we visited. Did you guys, there was a few different eateries in town. You lived here, but did you guys eat at the diners or anything like that ever? How was that like?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I can remember eating at that little diner on the end of the hotel
That my aunt was
once in a
managing.
while when I was young. And then the Dewdrop Inn Cafe, when Donna ran it, was very popular for kids. Then Leslie's drugstore, you know, you go in there and get minimal stuff. to eat, not necessarily cooked always, but something to eat or milkshakes or.
We just read an article this week, and I don't remember where it came from, but the Rainbow Room, which was a bank, which later became a multitude of other things. My dad owned a restaurant in there that my aunt ran. I had never heard this story. And it was a write-up that I think, did Gilbert post? Somebody posted that. Remember we read that?
I remember, I don't remember
And
who.
I don't have, and I've reached out to older cousins on that side of the family, and they remembered, but they don't remember the name of the restaurant or how long it was in there.
Yeah, I remember looking through the book I had of the Macaulay and Nelson notes and talked about it being a restaurant, but I didn't
Yeah.
see Johnny's name pop up, but it very well could have been. Because I think it changed hands quite a bit between the bank years and it
Yeah,
finally being
I think
established
so.
as the Rainbow Room. It went back and forth quite a bit.
And Lois Rutherford commented that her mom actually worked there for my dad. Hadn't heard that story.
Yeah,
So you missed some things. Should have been recording them like you are.
You know, I try and get what I can, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Mhm. So how was it to graduate out of Hinsdale?
I don't know, I thought the education was good and it was, I didn't see any issues as far as education was concerned.
Served you well?
Yeah, most of the teachers were pretty good.
Was it less rowdy than it had been in the past? Because I've heard of at least one teacher being dangled out of a window in the past.
That wasn't in my years. I don't remember anything like that. There were a couple of teachers that kids gave a pretty hard time to, some more than others, but Clark Cleveland was pretty fresh out of the woods when he came here. And so we gave him kind of a hard time for a while, but he took it good naturedly, and it wasn't anything physical stuff.
He must have, because he stuck around for quite a while, didn't he?
Yeah, no, he knew how to fit in. It just took a little bit. And Miss Lindgren, some of them gave her a hard time, but it wasn't like anything physical or anything. It was just
Challenged.
open a can of black olives and put it behind the radiator or something in the wintertime when all the doors are closed, that kind of stuff.
The radiator.
Well, it could have been anchovies.
Yeah.
So did they have a cafeteria in the school, or was
Oh,
everyone?
yeah, so town kids pretty much went home, but all the country kids, that was the only choice they had. Mrs. Rundle and somebody else before Mrs. Kosky,
Yeah, I'm trying, that thought went out.
can't remember, yeah, they were. And
Mrs.
I didn't hear too many
Essenson?
complaints about that food.
Oh, it was good. It was good. We all liked it.
Yeah,
Of course, we got to eat store-bought bread, which we thought was really great after all that homemade bread my mother made.
Now it's the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
You give anything for a loaf of homemade bread.
yeah.
So how was the difference in school, city kids versus country kids? Because the country kids obviously only came in once they had passed 8th grade, right?
Well, that's the way it worked to start with. About the time I was getting to high school, most of those schools were closing. I don't think a lot of them weren't open for any grades.
Yeah. I guess that's true. Snake Creek probably was the last one, and that was
I
only
think
through
so.
the 70s.
Yeah.
But was that quite a... Did you see the transition that those kids had to go through?
You could tell on some of them for sure, yeah. They didn't have it nearly as much in general as you got from here. But, and I think some of them probably went back a grade, so just to catch up. But, yeah. Not all of them, but, you know, some of them. But I don't know, it's kind of funny now, I always thought ours class was small, had 11 kids in it. When it graduated, it had about 15 to start with, it just kept getting smaller. Now, that's how many kids are in high school, you know.
I had one of the larger classes when I was there, and there were 7.
Yeah,
And most of us had been there the whole time, but
yeah,
yeah, now we have some with 3 or 2. I think one class almost didn't have anyone in it for a while.
yeah. Well, and I remember one year, not too long ago, Opal only had one kid, the governor went to his graduation.
Yeah. The funny thing for me is, obviously Hinsdale was never incorporated, so we don't have actual census data for the town itself.
Right.
But I can see a few from some insurance maps back in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. And I don't think the town itself has actually changed population that much. I think
No,
it's always kind of sat
I-
around 200 people.
I think it's probably close to that, but there are not as many kids in town.
Yeah. Well, the country kids and the kids in general and the people out in the country changed dramatically.
Oh,
Because I
boy.
mean, we probably had well over 1,000 people in the country that would come feed into Hinsdale, and now there's maybe 100.
Yeah, with the bigger ranches.
Yeah, yeah,
Had a family on every half section,
yeah,
and now you have to have about a township to make it work.
yeah. Well, and I don't know how they keep these schools going. I mean, merging the basketball teams and stuff is one thing, big enough project, I'm sure, but not the same as classwork. But it seems to me that's gonna have to happen sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people the school employs, certainly the biggest in town by a long shot. But, you got almost as many people working up there as going to school up there. Probably not quite that bad, but it seems like it.
There's schools in the state that have a far lower enrollment than we do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's what is it? Judith Gap, I think, is getting pretty close to having a 1-to-1 student to teacher ratio.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's still a better education than I think about any other option you got. The big schools anymore, I think a lot of kids fall through the cracks.
I imagine. Yeah, I don't have any experience with that. I can, well, not grade kids anyway. College, of course, that's you're on your own then. So.
Yeah, yeah, kind of sink or swim. No one's there to help you.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously you guys were away for a long time. What are the biggest differences? You know, your childhood versus Hinsdale now. Since a lot of people have been here the whole time, it's kind of hard to tell, but it was probably a little bit more of a stark contrast for you guys, I would assume.
You mean when we came back?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there were a lot of things that happened. Well, we'd been back off and on during vacation, mostly 4th of July, for quite a few times during those 40 years, but lots of changes. I think the highway speed changed 3 or 4 times while we were gone. And one time, I know the insurance rules were, if you got a ticket, it's $5, you paid the cop, and it didn't go on your record. That didn't last very long, but somebody didn't think that was very fair. I guess the government said you can't do that. But I think mostly the people are pretty much the same. You know, it's a lot easier to get along here than it is in those big cities, depending on where you are. But you have to be a little more aware of things there that you don't worry about here. That's still true.
And it's still, it always was and still is a very caring community.
Yeah.
And people really look out for each other and care for each other. It kind of wholesome. You don't really experience that in the big cities except for your own small nucleus that you've created, and most of those were created through
Yeah.
Darren's.
Some places,
sports interactions.
some places you don't even know your neighbors, you know. Just everybody leaves in the dark and gets home in the dark, so to speak. It's not quite that bad, but
Yeah.
Well, where we lived in Pleasanton, we were the end house. I never knew the people next door to us.
yeah.
Never. Probably because of commuting. They
Yeah.
were never home when we were, and they didn't have kids in any of the sports that Darren was in.
Yeah. Most of where we lived was on the edge of population. We weren't in the middle of the big cities. For work we were, but not to live, so it was not as bad as being in some of the inner cities.
Yeah.
You didn't want to be in the urban area, huh?
We kept moving
Yeah.
to get away.
It just
Well-
kept staying on the edge.
Living costs were much more affordable if we were on the
If we were
fringe
willing to
somewhere.
commute hours.
Yeah, that was the major thing as far as work was concerned, was commuting. For years we worked in San Francisco, and it was an hour and a half was a good day each way, you know. So
So all your years being back in California, what was the biggest thing that you missed from back home?
gee, that's a good question. I don't know.
I miss the family Thanksgiving. When 5 different families met at my mom's house and played
Yeah,
cards and ate.
family's probably the most of it, I
The
guess.
family
and friends.
stuff.
But yeah.
Well, and also 4th of July, because the first few years we were in corporate world, we were low seniority, so you could never get 4th of July off. And I can remember, what year was it we first came back?
I don't know.
Because in California, unless you travel miles, there's no major celebration for the 4th of July. And it's a significant part of this town, and a significant time when people get together. So we were so excited when we could finally make that drive to come back here for the 4th of July.
Yeah, not many places in the world where the 4th of July might be the major holiday.
Right. And so patriotic, it just
Yeah.
brings me to tears every time we
Yeah.
show up
Yeah.
and that parade starts.
Yeah, Christmas and Thanksgiving are for family, but 4th of July was for celebrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could go back to your childhood and relive one memory or one day or one event or what holiday, what would be the one that you would enjoy going back and doing again?
Oh, I always enjoyed the 4th of July. I mean, Christmas was, you know, a big holiday, and
That
the
would be
presents and stuff, but
one special.
I think the 4th of July would be it, yeah. Yeah. And once the kids grow up around, you know, Christmas is a different thing.
And it kind of evolves and changes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You go from believing in Santa to being Santa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, that is a tough question. Has anyone ever been able to answer that?
Well, I asked a version of that of Darren, and he gave a very nice answer. That was the last question I asked
Was
him.
that the one where he got all emotional? Yeah.
Yeah, because he had a very specific memory about Grandpa Portine
Yeah.
moving cows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has some
Yeah,
really.
cows.
And those were. I think that was a fabulous decision as a family that we made, that he would come back here in the summer. So, otherwise he would have never known his relatives and his grandparents and his heritage.
And it's a
have those
different
memories.
childhood here,
Yeah.
and it
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of stays
much
with you
different.
forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had a lot of fun with Kurt and those days.
Yeah. So we talked quite a bit about the 4th of July and how that's pretty important. Here in 2 years, I believe, will be the 50th Milk River Days, so 50 years after that big bicentennial celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would be something that you guys would want brought back for that kind? I mean, obviously that celebration has changed a little bit here and there. We're doing the barbecue different. We're
Yeah.
doing some other things different. What was something that
Well, And for a while now, the street dance was out in the pavilion or whatever they call it over there. Did they put it back on the street?
It's back
I
on
think
the
they did
streets
now,
now.
yeah.
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 Yeah, I thought I heard they were going to, but I always liked it out on the street.
Yeah, I had an infant and the music was quite loud, so I did not get to be very close. My daughter sure enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Well, I'm looking forward to the next all class, because we had to skip that one.
Mhm.
That's a special thing too.
Yeah.
Because you get to see a lot of people, and I hope you still get to see a lot of them.
Yep,
I
that,
mean, we're getting to that age where we're gonna miss some people, but.
yeah. No, that last one would have been the first real one that I've gotten to go to. We'd had one before, but it was like my senior year of high school. It doesn't really work when you
Yeah.
haven't really left.
Right.
yeah.
My class got together for our 10-year, but it's not the same as the big one. If I had to pick one thing, I wish we could do the ping pong drop out of the airplane again.
Oh, yes, you're
that
right.
definitely
You're right.
was.
Everybody wants
Yeah.
that, yes.
What is the problem anyway? I mean, I know what it is.
They say that you're flying too close to the buildings. So they
You
say
know-
I believe we could still do it, but we'd have to do it at the track field. And it's just not the same.
Well, that wouldn't be the same either.
They found a decent workaround, but no, that was always such an exciting thing as a kid because you did not know where it was going.
Yeah,
And even when you saw the balls come out,
yeah,
you still had no idea where they were going to land because they would drift so far.
yeah. No, I don't know why somebody can't figure out why once a year you can't fly down that street once or twice.
Well, you can. It's just if you get caught or not.
Well, no, well, somebody turn you in, you know,
Maybe the drones will get big enough and we'll do it that way.
maybe what?
Maybe the drones will get big enough.
But you still
Well,
need that airplane.
I thought about that little gizmo, Jerry Larson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he has to play by all the rules that an airplane does. If he just had a couple of bags of them up there, you could pull the strings and drop.
Is it just a one-seater, is it, kind of?
I think so.
I think
yeah.
it is.
Well, they
It's
might-
not, it's not his gizmo.
He hasn't had it
He
out
has
for a long time,
It's
though.
not the thing he puts in a parade, it's, he has a ultralight of some kind.
Well, maybe we'll have to make a couple phone calls and see what we can do.
Yeah, I would. That was always fun too, I hadn't thought about that.
Were there any other big memories or people or anything that you'd like to share?
Who do you think made the biggest impact on your life?
Are we counting family or
Well, my answer probably, I think, was Reen Lock, right?
with what?
Reen Lock.
Oh, in school?
Overall,
Oh. I don't
my
know.
dad or Reen Lock.
Yeah, well, mine would be my dad. But, and I like George Gaynor. A lot of people didn't like him, but he always treated me okay.
But did he impact your life that you did something different because of how he led you or taught you?
I don't know if he impacted my life like that, but I was one of the kids he called into the office whenever there was issues with somebody else. Just,
Is that because you were a fair person?
I guess.
Or a good
He
mediator?
wanted an opinion from somebody in the group
Um,
on what should be done, especially if it was tournament time and you were gonna suspend people or things like that.
Well, here we are, full cycle. Grew up here in this town. At one point, I was a city girl. Not very long ago. 58 years later, we probably started and we'll probably end in this town.
Yeah,
That's not uncommon for people here, but I never would have thought that prior to 2008.
well, in 2 years, we will have lived in Montana as much as we lived in California.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
It'll be even.
Finally balanced it back out. Start tipping it in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know one thing that we haven't talked about is how you two came to be.
How'd we come to be?
Well, of course, in a small town like this, and you know everybody growing up from the start, so. I don't know exactly how we came to be, but, just gradually got together, I guess. I mean,
Don't you remember the first flirtatious night?
You like to tell. You like to tell.
We were at the FFA banquet.
Oh,
Yeah. You were putting the move on.
oh. Maybe that was it, I don't know. Sometimes the guys don't know.
Well, the wife remembers.
Yeah.
The husband's just glad he's here.
So you aren't gonna tell our first little story?
Oh, I thought you would tell that one, you like that story.
But I must have, been 3 or 4. We lived at the back of the palace and at the time in the Masonic building, and I think at that time was at Claypool's grocery store.
Yeah.
Had not been enclosed and it was all stairwell going up,
Oh.
and they weren't to code. And I had been told very strictly that I was never to go up those steps. Well, I ran into little Jay Rosendahl and he said, we can go up here and we can swing away on these steps. And I go, oh, but I'm not supposed to do that. And he said, oh, you can get in trouble later. And boy, I got in trouble later.
Must have been worth it.
My mom loved telling that story.
Yeah.
So how was it as a couple moving from small town Montana to the big city
Oh,
and
it
making a
took some
name for
getting
yourself?
used to. I mean, neither of us had ever lived in one. I don't know, you didn't have too many travels before.
Well, I had
we left, but
significantly less than
I'd
you.
been up and down the road with the family to Arizona and Minneapolis and places like that quite a few times, so,
I had been to Great Falls.
yeah,
What a sprawling town that is.
Yeah.
yeah. One time Gary Mercer and I took the train from here to Texas,
Oh, you didn't talk
so
about that.
that was fun,
And they got treated like athletes.
yeah. His uncle was president of the Houston Jaycees,
Oh.
so he had a lot of contacts, and there was an old man in the hospital. His name was Abercrombie. And somehow Gordon convinced him, or he convinced Gordon, I don't know which way it went, to help a couple of kids have fun that wouldn't see all this otherwise, that were going down for the Bluebonnet Bowl. At the time, that's what it was called, it's something else now. So he called up Gary Robert and said, how would you and a friend like to come down on the house for everything? So we took the train down there. And we got to ride around on the team bus with one team or the other to all these fantastic places they went. Got a free Stetson hat, and barbecues and places you'd never go by yourself. Got to go to the Bluebonnet game and sit in the, Georgia was playing somebody, we were sitting in the Georgia governor's box. And then after that, the American Football League championship game was in town. Houston was playing Dallas, so we got to go to that. All kinds of dinners before and after both of those games. It was just a trip you wouldn't get to do otherwise.
Yeah. Just the royal treatment.
Yep. That was, other than Skidoo, my first train ride.
Only.
Probably a little bit more modern train, I would assume.
It was more modern than the Skidoo, but I don't know that it was nicer. It was,
Not like they are today.
no, it was kind of a slummy looking train. I hate to use that term, but it was,
Now they're pretty plush. They're kinda nice to ride in with
Yeah.
your reclining seats.
Well, it's because no one's on them.
Yeah. So no, that transition from Montana to California was scary, awesome. You couldn't believe the traffic.
well, and the Berkeley riots were going on at the
And
time.
Haight-Ashbury.
And Haight-Ashbury, we weren't far from either of those.
It's a different world. But it was great for land of opportunity and jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in your careers, where did your small town rural upbringing help versus hinder you versus everyone else? Because I'm assuming there were not many rural people. Everyone else that you were dealing with was probably big city.
that isn't necessarily true.
Oh, really?
Well, that was towards the end of the Vietnam War, and all the colleges were coming up here, companies were coming up to these colleges, which they never did before, because they couldn't find anybody to go to work, especially boys. But. So, I was one of 44 people went to work at Del Monte the same day, out of school. None of them were from local. They were all from somewhere else. And I assume most of the other companies were the same. So, no, there was a lot of out-of-towners moving in. Well, it had been that way since the Second World War. There were a lot of people
Melting pot.
didn't go back, so to speak.
Yeah.
They stayed.
Yeah, no, I remember hearing lots of stories of families going back to California during World War II, at least for a period, if not just end up staying there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that was probably the biggest boom start for California was after the Second World War. And it just continued after that. But no, there were plenty of others around that weren't from California.
I think that one of my answers to your question is that I never in all of my corporate experiences, whether it be Del Monte or Eastman Kodak Company or even managing our own business, did I ever have a boss as, I don't mean it's negative, demanding or focused as my father. So I never ran into anybody that I worked for or with that I couldn't assist them or help them do better because they didn't work at that same level. They just worked. Most of the people came and did their 8 to 5 job. Didn't have any desire to do anything but that, just go home with their paycheck and do whatever. So I think, from my perspective, that corporate world was pretty easy after job 14.
You already had enough work ethic.
Nobody dared yell at me in the corporate world.
And no one threatened you with shoveling out the barn at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, it was a significant upbringing here that I think really gave you a good morale for the corporate world.
Yeah.
And I have this article that I thought of today I needed. Have you ever seen the article, The Executive in the Bib Overalls?
I don't believe so.
I'll have to dig it out and send it to you. And Dad never wore bib overalls, and I actually think your dad gave me this article because it's on the Rosendahl paperwork from the hardware store, and it just really hits, what you came from with these people that were managing their own business for success. And most of them started with nothing.
Yeah.
And ended up very successful executives. They didn't want to be called that.
How was the transition for you guys from being employees to running your own business?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is when you start your own business, you should realize how much money you need to start with.
Yeah.
That was
Nobody
something-
tells you that.
That was something we didn't plan quite enough for, so that was a little bit of a.
But now we
struggle,
say we should have done that
but
years
should have done it
earlier.
before. Yeah.
A risk worth taking?
Yeah. And we were both good business managers.
Yeah,
Totally different styles, and we worked as a team in real estate.
yeah, but it was, of course, the year we actually started that was kind of a down time in real estate in California, down as it gets. But after that, it started going stupid, so there was plenty to do. And,
There's always more to do.
and it was the kind of business where your reputation, once you got going and had a certain number of clients out there, you pretty much didn't have to go beat the bushes anymore. You just had to take care of everybody.
And stay in touch with everybody. And
Yeah,
Just keep the momentum going.
yeah. And it's not like here, they change houses every about 4 years out there, so there's, you know, it's never ending. Here, somebody might live in the same house all their life.
and you knew that, and you know, you knew your client base, so you just constantly stayed in touch with them and did entertaining things with them, because in 2 to 3 years, they were gonna either upgrade, or if they got old, they were gonna downgrade.
Yeah, job changes.
Or they had 2 or more kids, so now we need more bedrooms.
I don't like moving that much.
Yeah,
That's a lot of stuff to pack out.
yeah.
Yes, it is.
I guess if you hire someone to do it, but moving furniture is not my favorite activity.
Yeah. No, none of it's fun. Even packing it.
We had many, we both were hard workers, and we put a lot of time into our corporate and our own business, but we also had a lot of fun, because we camped every weekend, we boated, took that boating that was in his family soul, and we had a nucleus of families that went boating with us, and then when Darren graduated from high school, we started going to Mexico and doing deep sea fishing, then going to the Caribbean, and then going to Hawaii, and then traveling with Darren through how many states? 7?
7, I think, yeah.
And golfing.
Sold all those houses, been all those places, done all those amazing things, and you still came home.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's worked out good for us. I never liked the winters.
No.
So going south then works out good for us. And
And we have because of our club activities down there, and mainly golfing and bowling, we have a nucleus of friends down there that we do things with. And of course,
Yeah.
Doc and Jean Eaton are in the same town now, so we have kind of a little social world down there now that it took a couple of years to do that.
oh yeah,
Are a lot of them, you know, doing 2 households as well, or
Mhm.
a lot of them staying there year round?
Both,
both, but more so
too.
winter and summer, 2 houses. Yeah. Now, some of them don't come up here. They go to northern Arizona.
And get out of the heat.
Yeah, get up a little higher and a little farther north.
Yeah. Guess I never thought it'd make
It's-
that much
you don't
difference.
get that 120 stuff.
Yeah, it's only 82.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that,
Of course, you can still get the 100 up here in the summer.
yeah,
This was a plenty warm summer.
but you can also get the other.
And it's kind of interesting, because I'm an Elks member and he joined the Eagles, and then we dug up the paperwork so he could join Sons of
American Legion.
American Legion. And all of those clubs, you know, you have a similar focus, and most of them are people our age.
Yeah.
So it's really friendly. I mean, particularly the American Legion, it seems everybody there wants to
Yeah,
talk a lot.
yeah. Well, they all have sort of a common interest there, the
True.
military, a lot of them.
Yeah.